Ward, next precinct. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Yep. If there anybody else would like a packet and information, this is the backup.
What date is it on? Oh, this is 8/7.
It's way at the very top.
The other stuff is the other part.
It's the top gate.
I think it's 7.
It,
They should put that on there.
well, it will.
If anybody is not interested in the 6-4 topic and wanted to share it with some of the folks from 6-4, that'd be appreciated.
Does everyone have copies of the information packets? Okay, before we begin the public comment, Mr. Rushford, would you like to update us on
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representing the College of the Holy Cross, which would be our host agency at Ward 6 Precinct 4, is John Anderson. So I'd like to ask former Mayor and former City Councilor John Anderson to come forward and join us.
Thank you. The seats are more comfortable? No,
You
they're
know
the
how
same.
to operate that gate?
I learned at some point.
Our needs. So, Mr. Chairman, the package, the information about your second hearing of College of the Holy Cross, Ward 6, Precinct 4, is following the information for 3-2. And Mr. Vangelli has prepared various maps consistent with the packages that have been prepared for previous commissions when we have considered voting location changes. So we have the entrance and egress, the parking spaces highlighted, the handicap parking spaces highlighted, and some 3D graphics to show points of access to the Hogan Campus Center. This hearing, of course, was advertised, as was the previous one. The heat maps, you'll see that they're all labeled, consistent with what we've done in the past. The red dots indicate households with voters, and the heat map underneath shows the concentrations where people who actually vote access the voting location. Perhaps Mr. Anderson would like to comment?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I was not in the position I have now in December when your last meeting on this issue was held. Another gentleman who's down the hall was then doing what I'm doing now. But I did read minutes of your meeting of December 4th, 2013, and I paid particular attention to the concerns raised by commissioners regarding the Hogan Center location. And if I could just go through them with you. The first was poor visibility of the entrance to the campus when vehicles were parked along College Street. And that's an issue that the college is aware of and has addressed. And the City Council 2 weeks ago passed an ordinance, I'll give you each a copy of it, that establishes a no parking tow zone next to each of the entrances to the college on College Street, 20 feet on each side of them. The college's concern was safety of people entering and leaving the campus, but it also simultaneously addresses this issue about entrance to the campus from College Street. The second point, the second concern raised was lack of directions to the Hogan Center from the entrances to the college. Actually, there is considerable signage both at the foot of College Hill and then on the campus pointing out the direction of Hogan Center. And then when you go in that driveway, that fifth driveway, driveway 5, there are further signs pointing out where it is. And I frankly have to tell you that I think 72% of the people who live in Worcester have been there for something or other. It's certainly a very popular venue for meetings and dinners and receptions and things of that kind. The next one was difficulty for some individuals parking on the sloped area adjacent to Hogan Center. And what we propose, what the college would do, is guarantee parking spaces adjacent to Logan Center. There is, as you know, I think, and it's on the pictures, a small island there. We would reserve the spaces adjacent to that for voters, and it would be restricted to voters. And we could, if need be, reserve more spaces on the same level a little bit further in the parking area, usually reserved for students. There are 2 handicap spaces in that area, and there are 11 more in the adjacent parking area. And those are there because it's relatively easy for a person, a handicapped person, to get from that space into the building. So and the building itself is absolutely handicapped accessible. And all the facilities within it are too. On the same level that the voting would take place, that is the 3rd floor, which is the entry floor from that side of the building. There are handicapped restrooms for men and for women. They were just redone a year ago, so they're in excellent condition. They are handicapped accessible. The building meets all the ADA standards. So that addresses that. The next phrase is stairs at the entrance of the Logan Center. I mean, technically, there are no stairs at the entrance to the center. The entrance is at grade level. Once you get in the building, then there are a series of, I think it's 4 stairs. But the lift, the handicapped lift, is immediately adjacent to that. And it does function. I heard an earlier comment that it's locked, but it's not. And it does function, and it's used on a regular basis. If we all had been up there this morning, we would have seen somebody using it this morning. Once you get up to that level, which takes you up about 4 stair heights, then you're on the same level as the voting area. We propose dedicating 2 rooms to voting. One meets the minimum standard, that is 20 by 22, but we have an adjacent room. You can push back some accordion type things, and we can increase it in size to 20 by 44 if that was necessary. We would offer to reserve the room the day before the election day, and the day after the election, if that was necessary for setting up booths or dismantling them on the day after the election. So we have reserved those adjacent rooms for 3 days at this point. The next comment or concern was steep terrain of College Street, a possible impediment in weather. Well, to be honest, to find a steep street that doesn't suffer in weather, it's probably impossible. But what the college does, in addition to the city plowing the street, the college actually does plowing in that area too, and plows all the driveways. The college personnel are there overnight if necessary to make sure access is available. Lack of city bus route to bring passing center to or near the Hogan Center. Frankly, we can't do much about a bus route, and I'm not sure the Elections Commission can either. The WRTA is, maybe we should petition them for some kind of better access, but the college hasn't yet. And then the last concern listed was a letter from Councilor Russell opposing the move and requesting the Election Commission consider other locations, including Bethlehem Covenant Church. Bethlehem Covenant Church is even further outside the precinct than the current location. It's 4 or 5 lots further. It's at the corner of Stebbins Street. I actually lived on Whitwell Street, so I have voted in this area myself. And I also live in the precinct that is, Mr. Rushford mentioned votes at Assumption College. So I voted in a college campus environment, and I've voted in the Quincy neighborhood too. Voting at Assumption was easy. I mean, they reserved spaces, they had campus police to make sure that space was protected, campus police to serve, to tell people how to get into a building and where it was. And Holy Cross would make the same commitment. I talked to the chief at Holy Cross, the Director of Public Safety, Bob Hart, today, and he's committed to having personnel on duty, and they would be there from 6 in the morning until long after polling closes, because they do a 24-hour operation anyway. The building itself might be advantageous because in addition to adequate place for voting, the precinct workers can take an elevator down 2 flights and get a nice cup of coffee or a sandwich at lunchtime or whatever. Or they can come up to the 5th floor and see me. Either one of those things. But the college was asked to do this. And we have tried to respond to the request in the best way possible.
Thank you, Chris. Question?
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe I moved here when you were mayor of the city.
I was there in 1986, so that was a long time ago.
I wasn't here then. It's a pleasure to meet you. I do want to note that I was at the Hogan Center Monday around noon. It was locked. The handicap was locked. So you might want
I
to
will.
chase that.
I will.
I assumed perhaps it was because classes were over or whatever, but it was locked.
I'd like to address that, because I was concerned about that when I actually was at the campus today. And I went in there and, again, Mr. Millay said it was locked. I went upstairs, there was some folks doing some things, and I guess if they knew how to operate it. And what the issue is you have to push the button for at least 10 seconds for it to operate. What happens, depending on whether it's on the bottom floor or on the upper level, you push the button in the direction you want to go, and you wait, you have to continue to hold the button until it reaches where you are. Then the door unlocks, you can go in and go up or down. So that, I think, is where the confusion lies, is the doors are locked unless the platform is where you're supposed to be, where it's supposed to be.
There's a little instruction.
Yes,
Would be very, very helpful.
I just wanted to note to myself that a sign or signage that indicates the way it operates. And that's an important point, the 10 seconds.
Any question? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Before we open for public comments, Mr. Rush, do you have any other observations you would like to provide?
Just if you had any questions about the factual material provided to you, Mr. Vangelli and I are happy to speak to that for you.
Actually, one thing. I do have one thing, maybe there was comments made earlier about the concentration of the red dot of the voters up at the Holy Cross area. Do we have a rough idea of what does that really equal as far as voters? Because Councilor Russell made a point of, that it's a whole bunch of students all in one area. But regardless if they're students or any other voter, they're voters. And I was just trying to get a handle on, the amount of students that historically from that jurisdiction voted and headed down to Quincy.
Of course, I speak to the facts of what we're dealing with, and I equate this precinct to the Assumption College precinct, because at Assumption College there is some of the faculty live on campus, and then there are students who live on campus. At Holy Cross, there is the Jesuit house that is part of the campus, and then there are the students who live on campus. And our experience at Assumption is that the majority of the voters who vote at Assumption are the faculty, and then sporadically you'll have the students vote in something like a presidential election. And I think that the heat map demonstrates the concentration of voters at a particular location. In other precincts, you'll find them, like in the Art Museum precinct, you'll find them in some of the towers, and in this housing for the elderly, we look at the concentrations from one street address.
If I may, is that one College Street, that red dot?
That's technically, that's the address of the college and the student's address, therefore it is one College Street. And we have 2,800 students. So they
One College Street?
well, they would use that address. I mean, their post office address is usually College of the Holy, they get a post office box number, and then College of the Holy Cross, Worcester 01610. But if they're asked for a street address, it's one College Street.
Any other questions regarding the materials or
Comment?
Okay, we will now open for public comment. Would you please try to limit your comments to 2 minutes? And Terry, go ahead. Give us your name and address, please.
Bill Gregorian, 206 Highland Street, Worcester. Wonderful locations, both 6-4 and 3-2. But there's one thing to consider as you plan for the long-term future. Thinking about worst-case scenarios and bad and inclement weather, just look at the linear distance to keep a single-file, organized, dignified line of people waiting to vote when we have those 100 or so plus waiting. Is there enough linear distance between, and again, I know the regulation is requiring inside, away from the elements, should it be a rainy day, for those that are coming to vote, if there's a line of 100 or 200 in these 1,200, 1,500 size precincts, to get inside the structure. Again, I don't believe we're mandated to do that, but I don't know if we are or not, but just from an organized standpoint, will it be, the Renaissance Court is very close to sidewalk, and if we do use that ultimately, which I hope we do, will they be able to organize people waiting to get in while those that are voting are there, you know what I mean?
I'm sorry, the hearing for 3-2 has been closed.
Oh yeah, no, I'm saying, I meant to use that as a general comment, just a comment, I don't expect an answer, just to keep it in mind as a organization issue, you know. Thank you.
To refute the voter comments, I just wanted to bring your attention to the information in your packet about the voting law changes that will be taking place across the Commonwealth in 2016, and those are made specifically to address the long lines that were realized in the 2008 and the 2012 presidential elections across the country, where the Federal Election Commission has set a guideline of no more than 20 minutes per wait. And the Commonwealth has just now introduced, the legislature and the governor have signed it. We will be introducing early voting in Massachusetts, so there'll be an opportunity for voters to cast ballots for, I believe, up to 9 days, 10 to 11 days prior to an election. So it's going to take the edge off of the lines. So we're very much looking forward to implementing that new provision of law, early voting, in a way that helps to, as an important tool in reducing the lines for voting on election day.
Mr. Rushford, will that early voting, will that be at one central location?
Correct.
Thank you.
Sir.
Sir, my name is Donald Courtney. I reside reside at 12 Lockswood Street in Worcester, Mass. In speaking with the mayor a little earlier, I had made a comment that I had probably stood out in front of most voting locations in the city in the course of my voting career, working for candidates. And that's what I'm here to address. Recent issues that arose during this commencement season has shown that some organizations and host colleges have told commencement speakers to hit the road because our views aren't what you view. Your decisions and your ideals are different than what this host or this college agrees to. So, as a campaign worker, and maybe a supporter, or maybe a candidate, where would my supporters be able to stand at the College of the Holy Cross to support me or to hold a sign for me? Are they going to be 150 feet away from the entrance to the Hogan Center, or will they be sent out to the street, College Street, to hold a campaign sign for any candidate? I think that's something that should be addressed, or maybe it has been.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the constituent, Mr. Courtney. In 2008, when Worcester blazed a new trail, and we introduced voting in supermarkets and some of the larger facilities like Assumption College, where there are large tracts of land, the Secretary of State actually changed the interpretation of the state law, establishing where the 150-foot mark is, and allowed the local election officials to establish a location within the large parcel of land, such as Holy Cross or Assumption or Stop and Shop, that is a safe location for people to hold signs. And we would do that similarly at Holy Cross as we've done in the other locations. We preliminarily established a location for the poll workers to stand, which is in a grassy area that is granite curbing, so that it's a safe area. We always consult with the police in these situations so that people, as poll workers, aren't staying in the middle of striped parking areas, for example. At Assumption College, there was an issue where we were going to have people stand outside on Salisbury Street, but the law was interpreted by the Secretary specifically, I believe, for Worcester at that point, and there was a safe location established in consort with campus security in the grassy area at Assumption as well.
Mr. Rushford, we have assurance from Holy Cross, and I'm thinking of Mr. Courtney's concern. The Holy Cross agreeing that signs that would be allowed in front of City Hall or Stop and Shop would be allowed in Holy Cross.
Correct.
We have that assurance.
Yes, we have that conversation before we get to this point, and each year our host agencies actually are asked once again to sign on, and for example, for this particular calendar year, we now have 20 locations of our 50 who have signed up for the fall already and agreed to all of the conditions that the Commission sets forth on a yearly basis.
And may I just say, just have one more, and maybe the chairman can direct this to the Mr. Anderson, is that what happens if my candidate has a position that the host school does not agree to and decides that we are going to do all we can to disrupt this individual's campaign and to keep his workers away and to do all that we can to make sure that his supporters or her supporters are not able to participate in the process of securing votes for that candidate. We have seen it, again, where commencement speakers have been asked to hit the road. Groups within the college or the host school at the commencement have mobilized to impede and to do all that they can to disrupt and make sure that that person, the speaker. I would be afraid that my candidate of choice may be in a position where he has a position on an issue, the host school is against that, mobilizes 2,800 students to get out there and disrupt that so that this person who I'm supporting does not have the ability to get his voters in and to get his message out to the voters as they're entering the precinct.
I think this would be a matter of civil order.
Well, this is an election commission question, and I couldn't allow a proposed host agency to speak to that. The entity that runs elections is the Board of Election Commissioners. In accordance with state law, no entity, to my knowledge, has ever influenced an election in this city, certainly not while I've been designated as in charge of operations and administration. And I think it's a good question. I think it's one that needs to be brought forward, but it certainly hasn't happened. There are police at every location. There are plenty of eyes on an operation of elections. As soon as someone turns the wrong direction, there's a phone call to us or to the Secretary of State's office, and I kind of envision that would ever change.
So just
We answered the question completely.
to kind of put me at rest here, the assurance is that somehow somebody is going to make an attempt to find out or to establish that, yes, at this host school and the other Catholic host school up on Salisbury Street, if they have an objection to a candidate, you will make sure that that candidate will have every right to have his supporters on site, and if the host decides that they're going to organize some type of demonstration against this particular candidate because they don't share his views, that supporters for that candidate will be able to, again, get on campus and not have disruption of 400 students surrounding them and taking their sign and not making that candidate sign visible.
Right. Now I fully understand the question. In the city of Worcester, we vote in temples, we vote in Catholic churches, we vote in Protestant churches, we vote in supermarkets. People who have Stop and Shop cards vote at Price Chopper. Jews vote at Catholic churches. Protestants go into temples. I guarantee that that would never be a concern in the city of Worcester, and I'm sorry it took you twice to ask the question for me to understand it, because it's outside my concept of possibility. If there's anybody who would not be happy with voting at Holy Cross, it would be me, because when I was 18 years of age, they denied me acceptance to Holy Cross. But I don't hold it against them. I went to Assumption.
But that's it. It's just that if I'm supporting a candidate and I'm holding a sign and the host's location does not agree with the positions of my candidate, they will not in any way be able to take me and boot me out to College Street, or they will not in any way be able to send a blast email to students saying, get down to Hogan Center because we have a candidate down here. We want to do all that we can to disrupt that candidate's ability to get his support.
I have a serious concern. People have the right to assemble. By way of background, I'm not a Massachusetts lawyer, but I am a lawyer. And your concern about the school being able to amass a group of disruptors, or that we would be able to stop them, I don't believe that we, as an election commission, this is my personal opinion, I don't believe that we would be able to make the school take their students away. They have the right to assemble also and to demonstrate. Now, what Mr. Rushford, I believe, told me, we have the assurance from the school that all signs would be allowed, and that all those students, if they oppose your candidate, have the right to assemble, in my opinion.
And that's fine, but the point here is that, and maybe I just raised a little bit too much on it, but it's just that there's recent issues with commencement speakers, where the school has said, we do not agree with you as a commencement speaker, your position. We don't want you here. Would the host school or host Jewish temple or the Protestant or the Bethlehem Covenant Church just be able to say to me as the candidate, you're not wanted here, take your supporters.
I think Mr. Rushford has addressed that issue.
Okay, and that's just what I just wanted to bring it up.
Questions haven't been answered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, very good.
Any comments? Yes, in the back, please.
Good evening. My name is David Johnson. I live at 66 Fairfax Road, Vernon Hill section of Worcester, Mass. And I am here, first of all, hats off to the committee here for keeping voting in Quinsigamond Village and not moving to Holy Cross, which would create a problem for the seniors who live in Quinsigamond Village to get to Holy Cross, especially in the colder weather and also when it gets dark. Now, when they redistrict Quinsigamond Village, people who were living basically 10 minutes away from the Quinsigamond Village Community Center had to go to the senior center. And I, as the previous director at Quinsigamond Village Community Center, I was informed by numerous people that have come in the front door because I greeted them, stating that we want to keep the voting here and not have to go to the senior center. And I was taking a lot of flack from that, from especially the seniors. And another thing too, we would like, I'm a member of the Greenwood Street Free Medical Clinic. We meet at 43 Greenwood Street at the Bethlehem Covenant Church. And they have advised me that they can use that particular hall for voting. It's a beautiful church. Downstairs can handle at least 70 people. It's clean, it's bright. We have a handicapped ramp to get into the church. We have parking for 40 people, for 40 cars. And I would like to see it remain in Quinsigamond Village and especially at the Bethlehem Covenant Church located at 43 Greenwood Street. I believe Councilor Russell is in favor of this. So I'll just give you my consideration to keep it where it is. If the car's running, don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the record, it's Father Bartlett. I carry this just so you know. My prejudice is indeed toward Holy Cross in many ways. And I'm also chairman of the board of the Quinsigamond Village Community Center. The point of my board is to say if the city has already decided to move the voting out of the community center, my words will still be spoken. If you're open, and I believe you are, and I flatter you on that, but also compliment you. We serve about 80% of the people in Quinsigamond Village are 65 and older. Most of them are pedestrians. They do not have transportation other than buses to take them down and back at various places. The Quinsigamond Village Community Center has been familiar to them as a place of gathering for decades upon decades. And for that reason, we are concerned that not so much that it be moved out of the center. I agree with Mr. Johnson, who was executive director when I took over as the chairman of the board. Whether the community center should continue to be used for voting, we've established that the entrances are acceptable, the ramp is repairable, and it certainly is a location which people are very much aware where it is. The Bethlehem community, the Bethlehem Church, is indeed also outside of the area. The fact that those on College Hill, and mind you, I'm well asked for Sacred Heart, so I'm well familiar with College Hill too, must have transportation, usually 4 wheels under them, that their access to the voting is much more simplified than it is for the people. We have 7 in 01607, which isn't the same as the voting, but in that area we have 7 housing for the elderly, some of which are voters in this particular precinct. I need to have the assurance. The board, we did not take a vote on whether or not you should. We got a consensus of the board that simply said, the people we serve are used to coming to QVCC. If the city chooses to move the voting, we accept it. But we are strongly in favor of making sure that the walkers, are able to get to the polling place. My last thing is, 2 of us here were accepted at Holy Cross, and we know how steep the hill is, even in a small area. Father Swords was president. He said, you don't need an athletic facility. If you get to class on time, that's all you need. It implied that I did have to go up 10 flights of stairs in one case to get to my class. I am concerned. I indeed support the college. I want the best for it. But I also want the best for the individuals who must vote. If you do not have an elevator, it doesn't matter how many people can't use it. If you offer difficulty to one voter to get to the voting place, that I feel it's morally unjust. And I feel that needs to be balanced out with all the other considerations that are. Professor Anderson is one of my favorite people from Holy Cross. My only regret is that I didn't have him in history, though the ones I had certainly gave me a great love of Worcester and the city. Please take my comments as those of somebody who has served and continues to serve individuals as well as groups. And I will at least report to the board just that I expressed the view of the board. And as you see, we did not take a motion. We simply got a consensus of the board to say, do what's best. And we will accept the fact that what you have decided is best for the people of College Hill, of Mount St. James, Holy Cross, and of Quinsigamond Village. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
My name is Wendy Beauregard. I live at 38 Davenport Street, and I am in favor of moving to the Holy Cross. Not that I've had any problems in the current location. I actually have walked down there from Davenport Street and had to walk back up Whipple Street, and it's on par with walking up College Hill. I think that the parking would be better at Holy Cross. I also think that you would be getting off of Greenwood Street, which can get very congested, especially when you're going to vote. So those are my reasons for wanting to move to Holy Cross.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Ron Sears from 10 Davenport Street. We always learn something new when we come to these meetings, and certainly I know like, nothing's new about these beautiful pictures of Holy Cross, by the way. And I walk that campus quite often because it's so nice. Some things, however, like particularly Cindy, should take a look at the parking lot over here. And that's our number one problem. You have parking on a hill, and people leaving work, for instance, from Holy Cross, leaving that area, it's really congested. You'll end up parking on top of the hill. If there's a good amount of people voting, there is not enough parking at the bottom, at the front of Hogan Center. They might reserve some parking spaces. I don't know if they're going to reserve spaces for the workers. You do have a poll worker here today. Maybe he could explain that. But there's not going to be enough parking spots. And I don't understand why we can't have it at a community center. It is a community, it's a neutral territory, and nothing wrong with moving it down the street a little bit farther. We have two other alternatives. Quinsigamond Village Community Center, run again for years by Dave Johnson. We never complained. I know we have a beautiful campus, tulips growing, but that is home for people from College Hill who go down there to vote, for people near that Quinsigamond Village who could walk right to it, right to that voting area. I've told you before that you can park, I park time at 98% of the time at the front door. I bring elderly people down there with me. We don't mind coming from College Hill down that hill. When we can park right in the parking lot, or even at the front door. Handicap can go in through the back door. I think it was well measured. I hope George Russell, who I missed, I understand he was here earlier in the evening, and he explained all that. And I now see there are other complications. Where are we going to put our campaign people for signs? Forbid, I would hate to see if there was a vote in the city on pilot programs. What would happen at that campus on a voting day? But that's just a kind of a, extemporary, really out there. But it could happen. We know colleges like to protest. I don't know who's going to go there and stop it if they decide to have 2,800 kids out there in the street. You just take a look at some of these pictures and you look at the parking lots. You look at the driveways going in and out. You come off of McEwen Road, there's no picnic. I drove my 10-speed up that hill, and boy, you got to take some real weird turns coming up from McEwen Road. Real weird. You go into the campus or leaving campus at work time, when work gets out, you're going to have a problem. people coming and going. And I don't want to go much longer, but I think we ought to keep it where it is. Find some money for the community center. They could use some improvements down there. We should have tulips growing in front of that place. But what are we doing? Vacating, helping them out, giving them a little support, giving them minimum money to be there, but we all meet our friends down there. How many students are going to come down to Quincy Village to vote? I know all the priests do. I meet them there. We talk. But I'm just thinking about the elderly, number one. College Hill. I can remember going to College Hill. I was 30 years old when I first moved there. Firemen said, "What are you doing here?" Average age is 63 up here. Now I'm one of them, well past 63. And believe me, we want to make it easier for people to vote. People who can into the Sig Village into the voting place. We would have a hard time walking on College Hill, the elderly. And that I think has to be a good point. And that elevator in that place, I tell you, is something else. And there are at least 5 steps there, John. And it's not easy. Coming down the hills, you have to park your car up on top. Take a look at this picture in the paper, in here. Empty spaces are at the top of the hill.
Could you please?
Yes, I'm all set. Hopefully we consider this, keep it where it is, and we may be better off, or even move it over to the Beth with David.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Anyone else? Mr. Rushing,
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I was probably remiss in not mentioning this at the opening of this hearing, but I want to assure my old neighbors on College Hill that their state representative was here at 6 p.m. and you granted him the indulgence of speaking at that time, so in case anybody wasn't aware, Councilor Russell was here. With reference to 3-2, as I mentioned during the break, State Representative John Mahoney voiced his support in favor of the change to the Art Museum. That precinct is within his district. State Representative Dan Donahue has also placed a call to me and said that if the commission finds that the college meets the criteria, then he would support the move to that location. This is his home precinct. I want to make it very clear that in all the considerations for moving of a polling location, that the City of Worcester City Council, on behalf of this commission and previous ones, always appreciates to the nth degree the generosity of the host agencies. We moved polling locations out of elementary schools for public safety reasons. We rely on the generosity of the host agencies over and over again. And there's no slight intended in seeking a better location. And I just want to make that clear that because Mr. Johnson is here and he's the former director at Quincy, and I believe he's on board at Bethlehem Covenant, is that correct, David? David and I have been friends for many, many years, and there's no slight. We're all Worcester residents and we're all friends. Just want to do what's right for the voters of Worcester. So thank you for allowing me to say that.
Okay, any comments from the commissioners?
I don't have any comments. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay. Make a motion.
I move that the proposed change of Ward 6 Precinct 4 from Quincy Village Community Center to Holy Cross be denied.
Is there a second? I second the motion. All in favor? Raise your hand.
Opposed?
Aye.
So the motion, because it's tied, the motion fails to deny the move from Quincy to Holy Cross.
So too with the motion to move it.
Perhaps. But if a motion to move it fails, then that means that we remain at the Quincy Neighborhood Center
Good.
for the time being.
Good.
on to the other agenda items.
How would they get it handled? You know how colleges are.
Okay, moving on to the next item of business. Taking through the 2014 street listing, Mr. Rutherford.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have, as informed you at your April 30th meeting,
Keep up the good work, John.
Mr. Vangelli, who is now officially in the position of Assistant Director of Elections as of Sunday, replacing Mr. Meduna, his mentor. Congratulations, Nico. He's proved himself to